Says I'm live. I'm a couple minutes early. I got a reflection in there. That's got to go. That's not going to work. Ooh, that's supposed to be off. There we go. That's better. Well, still a little dim, but I just have to deal with that. So I'm a few minutes early because last week the schedule got messed up. Meetup completely rearranged the entire thing. I know it was them. It wasn't me. That's not good. I have my face in the dark. And I feel so bad about it. It's been really something that's been on my mind. That's terrible. And there's not much I can do about it. That's not going to work. We're going to still with my face in the dark, in the shade. So that's better. So I went on a couple minutes early just in case somebody came on and saw that I wasn't here. I was like, oh no, not again. So, and I don't know if anybody's going to show up. People may be irritated from last week. There were several people online. Keep in mind that if you don't officially log into your YouTube, then I don't register that you're here. So sometimes there's several viewers that I'm not aware of. So I stayed online a little bit last week to just kind of apologize for what happened, and we'll get this thing going. Hopefully, you're able to reschedule and attend with me this week, or I'll be posting this on YouTube. It'll be available to you afterwards. But we'll start in a minute. So spiritual triangle is the core of these presentations. It is a system. I'm not a psychic. I don't predict the future. What spiritual triangle is a harmonic synthesis of numerology, tarot, sacred geometry, astrology, I Ching, and Tree of Life. Two of those, I Ching and Tree of Life, I added those myself after years of study, and they're phenomenal. I mean, they fit right in with this system of divination. All of these sources of divination, numerology, tarot, and sacred geometry, and Tree of Life especially, linked together. And so what you see in this image is a blueprint with the youth, power, and wisdom squares and life purpose in the middle. The blueprint is our incarnation, our life, where we enter and we go around this sacred geometry that Pythagoras manifested to reveal the stages of life we go through, particular to us. That's based on our name and our birth date. Our name is the vibration that we're born with, that we carry, that sets the circumstances. Basically, you could say the spiritual government uses a template. They can do anything, but they use a formula. There's a process of creation, Big Bang, etc., to manifest the world and the souls within the world, and their karmas and sanskars to be able to fulfill those karmas and sanskars. And so the system that they use is the vibrations that carry with our personal name, our birth date, our time, our location, like astrology, where you're born, what time you're born, what's transiting over the heavens has an influence on the ocean, on the land, and on you. So the spiritual triangle is a hybridized system that mystics came up with back in the Middle Ages, that we're able to use Pythagoras' system of numerology and sacred geometry, which you see here, along with tarot. And again, after doing that for years, profound system that reveals your options in life and what the best course of action could be for you. And I saw the symmetry, since tarot is basically a visual expression of Tree of Life. That's what it is. That's why it was invented. That's where it came from. That's its source. And so when I eventually realized that tarot being an expression of Tree of Life, well, then why can't Tree of Life be an expression within spiritual triangle as a source of divination? And then, of course, as an I Ching proficient in I Ching, that's all based on numbers and geometry as well. And so I synthesized those two. Well, we're 10:02, so we're going to go ahead and get started on this philosophy of Yog. Now, understand that the reason I say yoga, not yoga, is because I'm stubborn. The real pronunciation in Sanskrit is yog, without the I can't think of the word now. The British have an affectation. They added to all these Sanskrit and Hindi words. And sometimes it's appropriate, but many times it's not. And so technically, I like to stay with like the authentic pronunciations. And so it's yog, not yoga. And that's what I'm going to be using today. So what is yoga? Yog means in Sanskrit, yoke, which is a tool to join. It means union in Sanskrit. What are we joining? What is a union? He says down at the bottom there, union with what? So it is a system of cleansing, purifying, and preparing the body, mind, and spirit to attain union. Yog is a system of cleansing, purifying, and preparing the body and mind and spirit to attain union. Union with what? Everything. It is a system of attaining union with everything. Allness, oneness. This is often overlooked as the millennia continues to progress and history, the authentic schools of thought get shrouded in mystery throughout history. And so we're going to discuss exactly what that is. Everyone is familiar with universally. I mean, probably the most popular school of mystical process is yoga. And yet very few people know what it actually does or how it's worked. And they love it. And what I love about it, especially, and this kind of came as a revelation to me a little while ago, I don't know why I'd never saw it before, that around the world, there are conflicts with religions and philosophies. My way's best, your way sucks, blah, 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 blah. All these kind of conflicts. Everyone universally agrees that yoga is a wonderful system. Everyone loves it. Wherever you go in the world, there's yoga schools that you can join and go to class, and no one is picketing outside. No one is ever bombing one. This just doesn't happen. Everyone accepts yoga as this philosophy, this universal school of wellness and health, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, etc. And I love that. So rare, so almost never do we have any type of system that people are going to agree on. I don't care if it's Muslim, Christian, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, etc. The bottom line is everyone loves yoga because it has nothing to do with religion, so they think. And I'm not into religion. Religion is dogma. Religion is a business. Spirituality is a philosophy and a system. Religion is dogma and business, and it's an element that's necessary for spiritual progress for many people. But we can strip that away. And what yoga is a system to be able to join, unionize with what? With everything. That's not supposed to be showing that yet. I'm sorry that there's a, hold on. Let me try to fix that. Oh, there we go. No, it is correct. I'm sorry. So everything, now what? Now what's going on? There we go. So what did the Buddhist say to the hot dog vendor? Make me one with everything. Oneness with everything is the ultimate consciousness. And so that is what yoga is about. It's about joining our consciousness with the oneness consciousness, the supreme mind, the ultimate mind, the one mind, as the alchemists refer to it, of divinity, of spirituality, of the oneness. We can't really put it into words. It's ineffable. It's not able to be described. So I love that little joke. What did the Buddha say to the hot dog vendor? I will make me one with everything. So what yoga unionizes or joins us with is everything, a oneness with existence. You could say omniscience, omnipresence, etc. The point of enlightenment. I'm using air quotes because it's a variable term. There's many words that we can use: nirvana, enlightenment, oneness, is to transcend the material phenomena, to join our consciousness with the supernal consciousness, super consciousness, the one consciousness that we're all a fraction of. So yoga is a system of that. And again, many people practice it, millions around the world every day, but very few know the actual core of it and what it means, what it represents. Patanjali is the revealer of the yoga darshan. Patanjali is a sage. And I say revealer because it's not fair to say that he wrote it. Sages and gurus and avatars don't produce anything. They reveal what is eternal and infinite. It always exists in a level of the Akashic records. It never had started, it never ends. And so when we say reveal, it's because what they're doing is producing it on the earth plane, on the physical manifestation, so that we can enjoy it and we can learn from it. So he's the revealer of the yoga darshan. Darshan is, you could say, divine vision in Sanskrit. A vision of understanding. It's being able to perceive and understand. That's what darshan is, clarity. So the revealer of the yoga darshan is Patanjali. And what he reveals was the Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga, the 8 branches. So there are 8 branches of yoga. Asanas, etc., are just one of them. So it's the octopus of yoga. If you had 8 limbs, you'd do yoga too. I mean, I would. I'm not very good at it, the asanas. So we have 8 branches of yoga to discuss, to comprise the entire system of yoga for union with supernal consciousness. Wait a minute. 8 branches, 8-fold path. The Buddha had the 8-fold path, and Ashtanga Yoga is the 8 branches of yoga. Are they the same? What's going on here? Yes. The Buddha is considered to God-conscious people, spiritualists, an avatar. Now, technically, it's an agnostic path. It doesn't promote, it doesn't acknowledge God. That's not its point. Buddhism is the 8-fold path to attain enlightenment, oneness with everything. It doesn't go against God. It simply doesn't acknowledge it. It's indifferent to it. So spiritualists accept the Buddha as an avatar, a descension of divine power, of God himself, to reveal a path during a time when the path to God was rejected. And so what was acceptable to the consciousness in the cultures then was something that was less spiritual. So the 8 branches of Buddhism, the 8-fold path, the 8 branches of yoga, and the 8-fold path of Buddhism are almost identical. One system refers to and is aligning with the God power, and the other one just leaves it out. Doesn't say it's not about it, doesn't say it's wrong, just is indifferent and doesn't include it. So let's first talk about the 4 yoga paths and the 8 branches that support them. The 4 yoga paths are karma. Again, you notice karma. I'm leaving out the affectation, which means action. Gyan, which means knowledge. Bhakti, which means devotion. And Raj, which means royal mind. Hatha Yoga, which most people are familiar with, is a subsidiary of Raja Yoga. So Hatha Yoga is what you're getting in the schools, in the classrooms, the postures, the breathing, all the techniques that you do when you go in a yoga class, in a yoga studio, are Hatha Yoga. And that's a subsidiary of Raja Yoga. So there are 4 main paths within yoga: the path of action, the path of knowledge, the path of devotion, and the path of royal mind, or higher consciousness, of pure consciousness. And Patanjali, they're all the same. They're all one sage being. Patanjali says, I'm going to reveal to you the eightfold path of yoga when his descension on earth was thousands and thousands of years ago. He's kind of timeless. We suspect that Patanjali is always on the earth. He's in some cave in the Himalayas, meditating, radiating a divine presence. There are many sages. There's always a sage, a divine personality on the earth, especially during the darkest times, at least one. And sometimes they never reveal themselves to the public. And Patanjali and Vedavyas don't do that. Vedavyas relates to divine personalities and reveals these things. And so does Patanjali. So he says, I'm going to reveal to you the eightfold path. This is the beginning, the introduction to the Yoga Darshan. He begins by saying, I'm going to reveal to you the eightfold path of yoga. But it will take you multiple lifetimes to complete it. Not just one or two, but multiple. Could be hundreds, could be thousands. It takes extreme effort. Almost no one can do it, especially in Kali Yuga, which is the age we're in now. It takes extreme effort and discipline and commitment, and it's extremely challenging. And so almost no one will ever even be able to do it. Because since it takes multiple lifetimes, that means that every lifetime when you reincarnate, you kind of got to start over. You have the sanskars, you have the tendencies, it's in there somewhere, but you've got to be introduced to the path, which you usually will be. That's your sanskars, that's your karmas. And then you need to apply yourself to it and get into it. So it's very difficult to retain the progress you've made from lifetime to lifetime. It can be done. And we're all doing it. We're all on an evolutionary track and a scale to continue our progress and journey spiritually. So Patanjali is telling us it will take multiple lifetimes, extreme effort that's unparalleled, and almost no one can do it, especially in the age of Kali Yuga, which is what the age that we're in. So it sounds pretty self-defeating. And then he says, or you can just do bhakti. And I'm like, did anybody else catch that? Did he just say, or you can just do bhakti, like just, and then so anyways, then he goes, anyways, then he starts to go on to the Ashtanga Yoga and teaching the philosophy. And I'm one of the only people that when I saw this, I'm like, wait a minute. He's telling us that this thing's going to be nearly impossible to achieve and complete, multiple lifetimes to do it, hundreds, maybe thousands, or you can just do bhakti for the same result. And then he said, anyway, and then skips right over it. Because as I mentioned, avatars, such as Patanjali, such as Vedavyas, such as what we consider as spiritual as the Buddha, avatars who descend and appear on this planet to reveal truths and paths to help us. A Christ is also a guru and a master that reveals a path so that we can attain union with the divine, with divine consciousness. So he says all these things. So he is here to reveal the Yoga Darshan, a school and system to be able to purify and cleanse the mind, body, and spirit to be unionized with divine consciousness, spiritual consciousness, cosmic consciousness. And so I'm like, what did he just say? He said, or you can just do bhakti. I'm going to describe for you this impossible path, or you can just do bhakti. Yes, he did. So Bhakti Yoga, which will continue in part 2 of this, because it has its own class, is the core of the Bhagavatam, of the Yoga Darshan, of all of the Vedas, Upanishads, the Shastras. The core of them is the Bhagavatam and the 10th canto, which is about bhakti. So yes, he did say that, but he wasn't here to reveal the path of bhakti. That was more Vedavyas's job, and many saints after. Patanjali was here as an avatar to reveal the Yoga Darshan. Consider your spiritual goal like a big supermarket. It's got everything. You want enlightenment? It's there. You want oneness with God? That's there. You want formless? Okay. You want form? Okay, that's there too. And when we go to the grocery store, when we go to the market, we buy what we want, what fits for us. I'm vegetarian, so I'm very selective what I'm getting at the store. There's a whole bunch of stuff at the regular grocery store that I just don't want or need. It doesn't apply to me. That's my preference. So I get what I need. Spiritual paths from yoga to the Eightfold Path of Buddhism, which I already kind of compared those. all these paths describe a different process for a different attainment. Yog is, as mentioned in the beginning here, let me go back, a system of cleansing, purifying, preparing the body, mind, spirit to attain union. Union with what? Union with everything. Supernal consciousness. It's a pain when I got to go back. So then he goes into revealing the Yog Darshan. So again, I am going to, more than mention, we're going to cover Bhakti Yog and Kundalini Yog, because those are two areas that are particular for me. I follow the path of Bhakti Yog. That's my absolute, dedicated, 100% my life path. And I've also experienced and practiced Kundalini Yoga for many, many years, and I'm virtually an expert on that, having a full-blown Kundalini experience. So we'll get to that. But today we're going to go over the Eightfold Path. Now it's going to get a little hard to see because it's a little bit tiny, because it's as big as I could possibly make it. So I'll help you. Here, pull that thing close so I can see it with my glasses on. Here are the 8 branches of Ashtanga Yoga. Yam, restraint. Again, I'm leaving off the affectation that the British put on everything. Yama, karma, yoga. I will sometimes mess up with that in there too, but I prefer to be authentic with it. It's a respect thing for me. I'm just very particular. I'm a snob. So yam means restraint. There are 5 main restraints that once put into practice change the yogi or yogini, male, female, consciousness over time. They are ahimsa, nonviolence; satya, truthfulness; ashteya, non-possessiveness; brahmacharya, continence or control of sexual energies and desires; aparigraha, now you know why the British change everything, because they can't pronounce any of this stuff, which is non-hoarding or breaking attachments to materiality. So there's all those, there's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 levels of just the one first branch, which is yam, restraint. Ahimsa is one that's particular for me. I live by ahimsa as a vegetarian. That's the whole point of it, is because I'm ahimsa, which is do no harm. And that includes, as it says, nonviolence, truthfulness, because when you're lying, when you're misleading people, you're causing harm. So restraint is to contain and control and be consciousness and have consciousness of your actions and your decisions and your behaviors, you know, and the way and your life choices, the way that you live. Yam is about restraint, to be able to live within a parameter. You're cleansing yourself. The second one is nyam. It says an N on it, nyam. So it's yam and now nyam, which is observances. There are 5 observances that make us more aware of ourselves, our spirit, our soul, and our lives. They are, I'm going to mess these up. I'm not going to pronounce them very well. I'm way too American. Shaucha. I have no idea how I'm saying that. Purity, which means purity, cleanliness of mind and body. Shantosha. Contentment, being at peace with the way things are, objective reality rather than subjective. Tapas, austerity. Tapas means to burn, renouncing desires. Svadhyaya, I'm not saying any of these right. Svadhyaya, scriptural study. Oh, these are beautiful. Ishvar Paranidhana. I heard my guru say that the other day in a video, and I tried to rehearse it myself. These are Sanskrit words, multi-syllables, you know, the whole thing. It means surrender to God, letting go of the self. So these are observances. There are the 5 observances that make us more aware of ourselves, our soul or spirit, and our lives. To be conscious, to be able to be an active, deliberate part in the way that we live and think and feel day to day. That's what Nyam is about. So Yam is about restraint, and Nyam is about observing it, be objective about things, to be able to separate yourself from being the doer and the ego and the self. And one of my favorite Zen sayings is, I'm not digging the ditch is being dug. That's when we're observing it. We're not actively having our ego involved. So that's the second branch. The third one is asanas, Most of us are very familiar with that. That's all of our yoga schools and all of our yoga studios teach asana from Hatha Yoga, which I mentioned was a subsidiary of Raja Yoga. It means posture and seat. Postures help to create harmony between the body and the mind. This is so vital, which is why it's so popular and so fun. Without asana, it is very difficult to be able to sit motionless for hours in a meditative state without physical distractions like pain. The yoga postures we do in class are called asanas. So the whole point of asanas, really, what Patanjali is telling us in Yoga Darshan is that it's not for your health and wellness. It's because if you don't do it, you ain't gonna be able to sit in the hours of meditation you're gonna need to do the other steps coming up. I can't do it. I mean, I'm a very limbo. I've got all kind. I'm getting older. I was never good even when I was young. So asanas are a way to, again, create harmony between the body and the mind so that you're not perturbed and distracted by bodily needs. When I'm working as an author, when I'm writing, I mean, I'm oblivious to my needs of the toilet, of food. I'm just oblivious because I get what's called in the tunnel, creative tunnel. And I just forget about the whole world around me for hours and hours. I'm in a zone. And so asanas allow us to be able to do that. By practicing our asanas, these postures, we create flexibility. And so that we can, when we need to, when we're going to be doing it, spend hours in perfect stillness of meditation. I don't know about you, but I'm a restless, antsy guy. I can't sit still. I never could. I'm not calm like that. And again, I have big bones. Always have. I sit still for long enough in the so-called Indian style, cross-legged. It's painful. All I'm thinking is my foot is asleep. It's numb. I'm in pain. I can't meditate at all. So asanas are a way to be able to prepare and prime your body and unionize and harmonize your body, mind, and spirit so that you can do the upcoming branches and paths that need to be done to be able to execute yoga, union with everything. With this, which is very often also available in yoga studios and part of the asanas that you experience in Hatha Yoga, in Raj Yoga, is pranayama, a very key elemental thing for me. I love this. Breath control. Pran is a Sanskrit word that represents the vital energy of life, which can be thought of as breath. Yam means to control or to expand, to control or expand. There are 5 pranayama as well discussed in that section. So here we are on branch 4. We've already had 5 branches of each one so far. And then we got another one it's got 5 branches to it. So it gets complicated. You can see why Patanjali is saying almost no one can do this. It'll take you multiple lifetimes to do. 8 branches, and each one of those has all these subdivisions. It's difficult. So pranayama is the control and expansion of breath. Actually, in everyday life, none of us breathe properly. It's not natural. We haven't learned. In the age of Kali Yuga, in the modern world, we don't develop this skill, and we never get taught, and it's not natural for us in this age. When I was doing pranayama and yoga years ago, I was able to do nostril breathing and crow breathing while I ran uphill. It took weeks to be able to even begin to do that. And I was so proud, and it was beneficial. Couldn't do it now. I got punctured lungs from my death thing and all that. So, but what it does is it creates a clarity. Again, the harmony. To me, asana without yoga, without pranayama is worthless. And pranayama without asana is worthless. And again, ultimately, they're all worthless without each other. They're all linked together. They're all interlinked together. So pranayama is something we're familiar with, and we'll be going over that. Pratyahar, withdrawal and control of the mind. Now we're getting into the cerebral. Now we're getting away from behavior and action and body, and we're getting into the cerebral. We're getting into the higher realms. As now we're in branch 5. It means withdrawal and control of the mind, pratyahar. Up to now, yoga has been somewhat external and physical. Pratyahar is the bridge between the two as it is used to detach the internal from the external. This is the process where, again, we're branching. We're leaving from the physical realm and getting more into the consciousness realm. All the things we've done up to this point, The other four have been to prime us and prepare us and get us able to be able to begin here. They all one leads to another. So we go into branch 6, Dharan. And excuse my pronunciations. I'm not Indian. I don't do Sanskrit. Dharan or Dharan, concentration. Once the mind has been removed from the sense world, it can then be trained to focus internally until thought becomes single-minded rather than scattered. Wow. This is single-mindedness. This is what we hear a lot about. So this level, this stage, this branch of the Yog Darshan, Dharan, concentration, is to be able to, you've done all these other things, the control, the restraints, the pranayama, all these things are there to prime you and prepare you to be able to have single-minded, focused concentration. You can't be scattered. The whole point of yoga, the whole point of meditation is to become one with what you're meditating on, one with everything. Now, there's a trick and a loophole to that coming up later. There's also a catch, a fine print that can really trip us up. So Dharan is the stage and branch that teaches us how to control the mind through meditation and for meditation, which leads us to 7, which is dhyan. And that one I know I'm saying right. Meditation itself. Meditation is different than concentration. So that Dharan was concentration. It's different than concentration. In meditation, single-mindedness becomes continuous. So in Dharan, concentration, we are hopefully achieving single-mindedness. One thing, not distracted by our desires, our feelings, our perturbations of the day, etc., etc. And in dhyan, it evolves and progresses to being an uninterrupted, creating a flow of mind and intellect. Man and buddhi. Man means mind. Buddhi is the intellect. Buddha is like transcendent. That's where it comes from. So again, I'm going to repeat that. Dhyan is the 7th stage, the 7th branch of the Yog Darshan. Meditation is different than concentration. In meditation, single-mindedness, which we hopefully we're achieving in Dharan, becomes continuous and uninterrupted. You're creating a flow of mind and intellect between the two. They're not separate. They become one. They start to join. I can tell you from living a life of spirituality and living a life of discipline and practice, I've made some progress with this. There's a saying that I love very much in Be Here Now by Ram Dass that is actually from the Vedas itself. And it says, in the beginning, you do your sadhana. And in the end, sadhana is all you do. Sadhana means spiritual practice. In the beginning, you do your sadhana. And in the end, sadhana is all you do. So in the beginning, you're doing your work. You're doing these paths. You're doing this asanas. You're doing the breathing. And in the end, as we get to level 7, we have a flow of mind and intellect. They are merging together. They're not different. When we start to live in harmony and in a symphony with our spirit, the gap between our intellect and our mind and our emotions and our spirit and our spiritual mind and consciousness becomes narrower and narrower and narrower until eventually it becomes joined, which is the whole point of yoga and what it means to join. These are two separate aspects as we perceive them, ourselves and supernal consciousness and mind. The reality is they're not. We create that division. This is the flaw we have in the human condition. So dhyan, meditation, is to transcend, is to take concentration, dharan, to the next level, to create a flow and bridge the two together until they start to join and unionize. And finally, we get to branch 8, the final one, samadhi. Pure consciousness or non-consciousness. The state of having no thoughts. Now there's a total absorption with and unity with the object or thought of a sense of becoming one with something or all things. I'll give you an example. A very popular And a very helpful meditation technique is to meditate on the candle flame. A single solitary object that, it doesn't matter what it is, could be a candle flame, could be a fly on the wall. The point is to practice these first stages to prepare ourselves to be able to sit in concentration meditation long enough, with discipline enough and clarity enough to be able to have single-minded, pure meditation and focus on this fly on the wall or candle flame, which I've done, the fly on the wall. I mean, the candle flame, not the fly on the wall. Until you achieve a union with it, until the division in reality between you and it dissolves. Now, I've had moments of this. I clearly haven't had long episodes of it, otherwise I'd be a Buddha. I've had moments of this, literally with candle flames, as I practiced these religiously for many years. It would take days and days and days. It took me years and weeks to be able to attain a level where I was experiencing a oneness with the candle flame. Now, I like candle flames because I like that they flicker. I like that they move. They have character. Yantras work well too, because again, they have motion. They're very dynamic. We have restless minds. I gravitate more to something that has that quality to it. Other people may not. They might want something that stays still like a feather. Whatever you want to use. The point is that in the beginning, you're doing your sadhana, you're working it, you're working in practice, and you're performing an action. But over time, call it a trick of the mind, call it like an optical illusion kind of effect. Eventually, your mind and yourself and your ego and the separation between you and the thing you're concentrating on dissolves. You just kind of lose your mind. It just gets weird and it gets strange, and you start to contemplate and wonder and focus on what's the difference between where do you begin and where do you end and it begins. So as I sat, as about I am between me and this tablet that's projecting my image, a couple feet from a candle flame in a dark room, I would have these episodes where I just felt complete union and oneness with this candle flame. It was gorgeous and it was beautiful. The problem is, the moment I would have that, or soon into it, I'd be aware of it. Oh, wow, this is really cool. Boom, gone, broken, done. No more single-mindedness, no more flow of consciousness anymore. Now it's done. Now there's a me and it. We're not one anymore. Now I'm observing it. I broke the join. But with practice, I was able to get kind of right back into it. I was kind of fluctuating back and forth, like oneness with it, with this total peace and serenity, while it fluctuating with, oh my God, this is really well, like I'm really doing, like this is actually happening. Like I'm achieving the things that I'm supposed to be achieving, like what I'm here to do, like it's happening. And I remember I was at a Buddhist temple in Los Angeles, a really great place, that big, very large temple there. And it's open to the public. And I went in there, and there's always a few monks, 1 or 2 or 3 monks that are kind of meditating on display. And it's not to show off. These men, these Buddhist monks, are sitting in these little alcoves in the hall where you can enter, their sadhana hall, the satsang hall, and you can observe them. And you can just sit at their feet and sit near them and meditate too. And that's why they're there. They're there because they are transcending consciousness. They're in these supernal states. And so you can associate. That's what darshan is, to associate with something that's beyond you. And so I would go there occasionally and just kind of be in their presence. And I'd do my own meditation. And I would be able to benefit from the fact that they're kind of radiating this. And I'm in this space. Instead of out in traffic that's contradictory to everything that I'm trying to do in yoga, I'm in this space. And that's why they would do it. They'd be on display. 1 or 2, sometimes 3 monks would be in there. And so I had a conversation with a monk, one of my visits. He and I were talking afterwards and describing our experiences and our techniques and kind of really enjoying the conversation, the dialogue we're having about it. And I'm like, this guy is so far ahead of me. He's a monk. He's dedicated his life to it. He's hours and hours and hours every day doing this. And so I'm trying to pick up what I can from this more progressed person than I am. And I'm describing my experience. And he looks at me and he says, "You do what? You really?" And he was jealous because I'm describing what I'm experiencing with the candle flame, etc. And he's like, "Man, I've been here. You're doing great. I mean, that's like really advanced." And I said, no, I'm only getting this for like a couple seconds. He goes, "Like, man, I've been doing this for 20 years. I get 2 seconds at a time." And so we have to adjust our expectations. If we're able to achieve samadhi for a moment, you're making significant progress. Don't be disappointed. And I tell you, it's worth it. Oh my God, is it worth it? Because even though it's only a minute, only a moment, it's so unforgettable. Now, the Buddha said, the best and worst day of someone's life is when they realize samadhi, enlightenment, is a possibility. The best day, because now they know why they're here and what they can achieve, and that they can be in perfect contentment, perfect peace. They now know it. The worst day, because they will never, ever be at peace without it. So when you experience any progress in any of these stages, in many ways, what he said applies, the best and worst day of your life. Because the best day is you're making progress. You now see the evidence. You experience a state of bliss or peace and contentment that is beyond anything you can imagine. And yet the worst day, because now you know it, now you've tasted it, you can't live without it. There's an axiom of life. First we desire, first we perceive, and then we desire. You perceive nonstop. You're perceiving the world through all your 5 senses nonstop. That's what you are. You are a perceiving machine, and which means you're a desire machine. Because every time you perceive something, you desire something. You either desire more of it, something like it, something of it, or you don't want it, which means you want something else. So the best day, because when we realize that nirvana, samadhi, enlightenment, or any synonym you want to use, they're interchangeable, is real and possible. We now know why we're here, and we feel, I found the purpose of my life. And it's so rewarding and fulfilling to know that, finally, instead of wondering and searching and looking and hoping to discover what the truth is. But the worst day, because we will never be at peace without it. Because now we know that existence is meaningless without it. And I'm definitely in that state. I feel like I've made tremendous progress. I'm not there, and you can't be halfway there. You can't be part of the way there. Once you're one with everything, once you've had complete union with divine consciousness, then that's it. It's done. It's forever. It's perfect, and it's forever. And now that I've had glimpses of it and tasted it through my Kundalini yoga experience, which is mind-blowing, and through these other states of consciousness and my death experience, which is mind-blowing. Now that I've seen it, I can't live without it. But the Buddha follows that by saying it's only a matter of time before that person will attain it. Once they realize that enlightenment is a possibility, they will never be at peace without it. So therefore, it is only a matter of time before they attain it, because they won't give up. They'll never be at rest. They'll never be at peace until they attain it. I don't care how many lifetimes it takes. As Patanjali's saying, it could take millions, hundreds, dozens, a few, whatever. But then we better get to it. I can't be at peace without it, because I know it's a reality. I know it's not a figment of my imagination. It's not a concept. It's a real thing. I've tasted it. And you're often given, in my view, given as in graced with glimpses of the progress, because again, it's to me the supernal divine consciousness, one mind's way of saying, giving you a pat on the back and saying, good job. I'm gonna give you a little cookie. So you keep trying. We get a reward. And it motivates us. I can't stop. I don't know how I ever stopped in many lifetimes before, but I obviously did, because I've been here for eternity. I've been living for an eternity. My soul is eternal. I've been doing reincarnating and incarnating for an eternity, and yet I've not attained it, which means I had to have given up at some point. Where am I on that spectrum and on that scale, on that progress? I don't know. We can't know. I know that I'm not going to stop. So let's go back into What's next? Oh, so what I have, all of the systems that I present here, most of them, I have developed workbooks for. And again, you can't see the type there, it's too tiny, so I'll read it. So, and of all the ones, so I have these workbooks that are laminated and shiny and nice and have all this text and images and really great stuff in them. And here's the one on Kabbalah. Here's a real good example. And the only one that I did not have a print copy for was the Philosophy of Yog workbook, which is one of my favorites. It is 45 pages. It's instantly downloadable as PDF or ebook after purchase. There is a print version too, but it costs a lot more and has to get shipped and all that. I mean, these things were not inexpensive to make. 45 pages with illustrations and handy pull-out, printable, easy reference cards, which includes a complete introduction, the history and origins of Yog, what's the best way to do Yog, what is Yog, Ashtanga Yog, the octopus of mysticism, the 8 branches of Yog and how to practice them, what we've been going over, and pull out reference cards. So while I don't have the yoga one, I can give you an example. If you go to spiritualtriangle.com, you'll see in courses that there are several workbooks there that you can download. This is the print version. So for example, in the Kabbalah workbook, there's the contents and there's all this text with images and descriptions and instructions on how to practice and become proficient in Kabbalah. And there's one for yoga, and it's 45 pages. And at the back of it, see, whenever I'm reading these kind of books on my life, I was always kind of annoyed that I had to keep going back to indexes and going back and forth for definitions, keep track of the words and the labels and the images. And they refer to some image. I go find the image in the book. And so what I've done is I create these pullouts. Let's see what's stuck. So that when you're reading the workbook, you can have this alongside. So this is the Tree of Life in the Kabbalah workbook. So I can have it side by side when I'm reading to reference it. So what it's talking about, I can see it without having to flip back and forth and lose my concentration. In addition, on the other side of this card, and the yoga one has 2 pull-out sheets because it's a lot of information. And on the back side of this one, on the Kabbalah, it has all the things that are referenced in a handy, quick, easy access, so you can see what you're learning, what you're talking about in an image. So when I'm referring to things, when I'm referring to these different chapters of history and origins of yoga, what's the best way to do yoga, it actually has on the workbook, on the pullout, images and descriptions that you can take into your little yoga room or whatever you want to do and use it. So this whole workbook, flipping back and forth or memorizing it, you can hold this thing in front of you or set it up near you and just be able to reference it. Let me give you an image what that looks like. Again, it's kind of hard to see on this distant video kind of thing. But for example, it says Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 branches. All the 8 branches are listed up there at the top. Then we have a yantra for meditation, and it's because it's explaining about that. And down here it says, oh, well, I can't even see that myself. It says beginner and or brief yoga routine. And so what I'm giving you is images of myself doing this to show you as I'm describing different asanas, meditation and pranayama, I'm illustrating it. Here's the second page of that, where a whole list of images. So if you can't get to a studio or don't want to go to a studio, which I usually don't, this teaches you how to do yoga at home. I'm giving you illustrated examples. I'm basically giving you a yoga class through description and images so that you can use this as a template. And you don't have to flip back and forth through the booklet. Same thing here, the subtle energy body. I give you a complete description of the subtle energy body, the 7 chakras, what they mean, how to use them. So this workbook, I tell you, as I've often shared in these workshops, in these presentations, and the workbooks that I produce, I have a lifetime of study and dedication. I'm a pretty smart guy. I consume a lot of material. That Kabbalah workbook is the condensation of volumes of material. Israel Regardie's Garden of Pomegranates is that thick. I don't want you to have to read all that to become knowledgeable in Kabbalah. I don't want you to read the Yoga Darshan to become knowledgeable in yoga. Because for all you know, you may read one of these things that could take years to be able to get through, to find out, you know what, this isn't for me. I don't want to be a ceremonial magician. I don't want to be a Kabbalist. I want to do alchemy. And same with alchemy. My alchemy book is being produced. I mean, I'm a master alchemist. It's taken decades for me to learn what I know about alchemy, that I learned from people that spent lifetimes doing it. And so the workbooks, along with these workshops are primers to be able to introduce you. So the first week you need to decide, oh, I'm into that. That sounds cool. I want to know more. That's our sanskars. That's our tendencies that are left over from past lives that are coming up. Our interest in something is because we were interested in it before. It's kind of like a muscle reflex. And so before you dedicate tons of money and study time to these subjects, I'm giving you primer books that are very thorough, that I've distilled volumes and volumes of material in a very way that's accessible to everybody and anybody. And that's kind of the gift, if I may say so, that I have as an author. I'm able to distill and present very complicated texts and concepts in ways that most people can understand. I've built a career out of it. That's a sanskar that I have. Because one of the biggest hurdles that I've had in my studies through mysticism throughout my life is, as I was reading all this stuff, especially with ceremonial magic, it's so cerebral. These guys are deliberately trying to keep it that way because they're snobs, because they basically are so full of themselves, and I love them all, but they're so full of themselves, they're showing off all the time how smart they are. And that's great. But people don't have that level of intellect. They can't process it. They can't get it. And why should they be prevented or prohibited from being able to use these systems? Because they don't have that kind of intellect. A student came to me once and said, I have ADD. I don't read well. I can't stay concentrated. I lose track. And they said to me, they pleaded, can you turn these things into audio or maybe even video? And that was the inspiration of these workshops and my video courses for behavioral solving solutions, addiction, etc. on lifemind.com, life-mind.com. So these workbooks are my way of, you could say, giving back. I was so frustrated with the volumes of material that I had to read that a good 30% of it was like totally useless. It wasn't applicable to me. To be able to get the jewels that were there that I could use and apply. I'll give you an example. Brian Greene, the physicist. I think Brian Greene is wonderful. I'm a physicist hobbyist. I love physics. I'm not Einstein. I'm a hobbyist. I've been to CERN in Switzerland and I got to tour it, and oh my God, absolute fantasy. But can I really understand the mathematics that go into quantum physics and the theory of relativity? No. I don't have that kind of intellect. Mine is more conceptual. I do physics theory, not practice. I do practical physics. I do theoretical physics. Brian Greene is a contemporary physicist. Maybe you've heard of him. He's been on TV, etc. And this guy is brilliant. He, in his few books, can explain quantum physics and string theory in ways that I can understand it. It's not for everybody, but the bottom line is, if it wasn't for someone like him doing what he does, I would never be able to learn it. And I love this stuff. I see God in the details. I don't see a difference or separation between quantum physics and God. I see this is the process which God uses to manifest the material phenomena. And I'm blown away by it. And so when I'm studying physics, I'm having a religious experience. So what I've done with these workbooks is to be able to provide for you the benefit of my lifetime of study and practices. Not just theoretical, but because I practice it. I do it. These photos are of me showing you what to do and how to do it. to make them accessible to anyone and everyone that wants them. That's the whole point of these workshops. Again, these 4 pages, these pull-out pages, so you can have them along with the references that you're reading. I encourage them. Put a lot of work into these things. They may be small, but that's because I've taken out all the stuff that you don't need. I've taken out all the fluff. And by the way, hopefully, if you like my presentation, the way that I speak, it's in a very conversational tone. The other problem I've had with mystical studies and science is it's so dry. Again, what I love about Brian Greene is Stephen Hawking was a little bit dry. Wonderful, but it's a little up there and he's a little bit dry. Brian Greene makes it accessible. He makes it more friendly, more conversational. And so what I try to do is I write the same way that I'm speaking with you. Like we're just a couple people sitting in a room having a conversation. And recently, the Yog book, Philosophy of Yog book, was completed a long time ago. And I never had to change it because it was what it's supposed to be. However, there was something missing. And I'll give you an example that's just coming to mind. As Vedavyas revealed the Bhagavatam, who knows when, centuries and centuries and millennia ago, timeless, he said he was done. And it was Ganesh was his scribe who was writing it as he was dictating it. And Ganesh said, "You ain't done." I said, "What do you mean? I'm done." Like, that's it. The Bhagavatam is revealed. And he said, "What about bhakti? What about bhakti yoga? What about the crown jewel of yoga? What about the essence?" And so he went back and he revealed the 10th canto to the Bhagavatam. I'm going to get tears in my eyes as I'm just thinking of it. So in my own way, I like to model myself after these inspirations. And so this last year, I added 2 separate chapters, addendums to the Yoga Philosophy of Yog workbook. One on Kundalini Yoga and one on Bhakti Yoga. Again, very thorough. I didn't change the price on it. I don't remember how much it is. It's like $10-20. We were talking, I probably spent hundreds on the workbooks that I produced, on the knowledge that I gained for it. And you're getting this for like $10-20. I've added whole sections now on Kundalini Yoga, what it is, how it works, what to watch out for because it's dangerous, and Bhakti Yoga, which is the crown jewel and the essence of all yoga. So those are at the Spiritual Triangle website under courses. There's other offers and services there. I encourage you to take a look at that. There's just some add-ons there. I always want to make sure that you understand my qualifications. You can pause and look at that later on if you like. That I'm not just some theoretical guy that just wants to expound on whatever I think is correct or true. I only present authentic, legit, real knowledge that's verified from the original sources. None of my own ideas. Some of my clinical qualifications as a presenter, etc. And then, of course, Bhakti Yoga being the crown jewel and the essence of yoga. If you take away all the other 8 branches, all you really need is Bhakti Yoga, as Patanjali said, or you can just do Bhakti. There have been some avatars on this planet that represent and reveal and expound on and provide us with the essences and the nuances of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti means surrender. It means devotion. It's emotional. It's not dry and theoretical and knowledgeable. It has that too, but it's about connecting your heart and your love to the divine and bonding with that. There have been a few masters, avatars, that have been on the planet. Like Shankaracharya was an avatar for what we were just going over, like the oneness with everything, the formless aspect of divinity. A Bhakti Yoga avatar is an avatar that appears on this earth to reveal the path of bhakti. We have had one recently of such a tremendous magnitude. Bhakti Yoga Rasa avatar. Avatar Ras means bliss, spiritual and divine bliss. So he's a Rasa avatar, meaning that he is the avatar, the dissension of divine bliss. That is his title. Bhakti Yoga's avatar. This is a guru, a master that appeared on this earth, Guru Kripala Maharaj, to reveal and teach and provide the knowledge and the way, the path through Bhakti Yoga. Some lovely photos of him. An enlightened master that spent over 90 years on this earth to teach us and provide us with the grace of Bhakti Yoga. He is the embodiment, the personification of Bhakti Yoga. Literally, I'm not just saying like that's what he is. That's what an avatar is. An avatar is a personification of a divine concept, of a spiritual level, so that we can relate to it and we can hear it. The burning bush is not a personification of God. That's an abstract manifestation of an abstract formless aspect of God. So whereas the Jesus Christ would be more, as he said, the new covenant. This is a personified form that we can relate to, learn from, see, touch, feel, listen to. So much better, so much more personal. This is what masters and avatars descend for, so that we can listen and connect to them. They're not humans. They look like humans, but they're not. This is no human. But he looks like one, and he acted like one, and he was beautiful. So we're closed with a little promotion here that, again, the next meetup, how about the Philosophy of Yog Part 2, where we're going to introduce, we're going to review some of this, and we're going to go over the Kundalini and the Bhakti Yoga aspects. This video will be posted on the YouTube channel, so you'll be able to access. If you want to go back and look at those 8 branches and pause it and take pictures of them or whatever you want to do. And they're also on the website again, and they're in the workbook, which is downloadable instantly. spiritualtriangle.com. Partial and full readings are available, as I can produce for you a map, a roadmap, a mystical roadmap of your life's journey with intuition. And so the next meetup will be the Philosophy of Yoga Part 2, which I'd like to schedule, go ahead and do next week while it's still kind of on the mind and still kind of fresh. Get some momentum going. So be well. Om Shanti and Jai Shri Radhe, which is, again, Sanskrit greetings and salutations for saying peace be with you kind of thing. And Jai Shri Radhe is, again, a way of honoring the personification of divine love that we can attain through the system of yoga. I'll see you another time soon. Thank you very much for your time. Jai Shri Radhe.